Welcome, foolish mortals. There's no turning back now.
That's right. Welcome, foolish mortals. This is the Disney Life Happy Wife podcast that you are listening to. Hope everybody is having a great week so far. I know it is beautiful and sunny here in Little Rhode Island, and couldn't ask for better weather as we're in mid-June. I guess mid to late June. So it's definitely starting to be a good week here. Hopefully you guys are all having a great week wherever you are. And if not, hopefully this podcast makes it a little bit better. So I am, if you are watching on YouTube, and for those of you who have not watched the podcast channel on YouTube yet, you definitely have to check it out. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll notice that the background looks a little bit different. I am recording in a different way this week. I am recording from my laptop. That way I can see the best way to take this with me if I want to do a mobile podcast recording, and I am recording from my laptop. I am trying all the setups there, so I decided to take my laptop out into my living room, which is where I'm at right now, and you may hear some background noises. I am trying to figure out all of that with the noise and everything, noise reduction and all of that, so you may hear some noise. You may hear my birds at one point, or cars or cats or something, but I'm trying a little bit of a different setup, so that way when I'm in Disney, if I want to do a podcast from there, that way I have that set up with me and I know exactly what I'm going to do. So that's why it might look a little bit different on YouTube. Hopefully it still sounds the same if you're just listening to the podcast, but that's where we are. I know it has been a while. It has been a hot minute since my last episode, so I am so sorry for that. We've got lots to talk about today on the podcast. I know I've gone back and forth about what we're going to talk about in next episodes, but this time I am going to talk about, I went on my second solo trip to Disney, and I am going to talk a little bit about that. And hopefully on our next episode, I am going to have Emily on. It's so hard to track her down and keep her in one spot for too long. So I want to talk to her about, we recently just saw one of the new movies that came out on Disney Plus, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. It's a kind of a satire spin on the cartoon, and I want her opinion on it, and I want to hear what a 7-year-old who has watched the old episodes, who has watched some of them, what she thinks of it. I want her to let you guys know what she thinks of it, and then I'm going to tell you what I think of it. And I guarantee they will be very different perspectives on Rescue Rangers. So that will be one of the next episodes. But today, I'm going to be talking about my second solo trip to Walt Disney World. And like I said, this is the Disney Life Happy Wife podcast. I am your host with the most, Kristen. And you know me, if it's a Disney life, then I'm a happy wife. So let's jump right into this episode. It might seem like I'm bouncing around a little bit. Usually before a podcast episode, I write everything down. It's the way that I usually am. So I am kind of going off the cuff today. And we'll see how that works, because that's pretty much how it's going to be if I'm doing this mobily. If I, take my laptop with me to Disney and I'm doing an episode after I get back from the parks or whatever. So yeah, so we'll see how it goes. So off the cuff. And like I said, we're talking about my second solo trip. I was lucky enough to go on my second solo trip to Walt Disney World in April. It was right after April vacation, and I was definitely in need of this trip. I was in need of some time away, some time to relax, and it helped. So I will say that. I literally went just a couple of days right after Emily's April vacation. I know kids around the country get different kinds of vacations for when they're in school. Here in Rhode Island, they get a February vacation and an April vacation. So I think they call it winter break and spring break, I think. So that's what Emily had. And it was literally a couple of days after that, I headed down to Disney. And I was down there for 4 days, which was different from October. October was 3 days. This time it was 4 days. And like I said, I was in need of a break. Things at home hadn't been that great. And I needed just kind of the mental escape that Disney is. And I was very much looking forward to it. Was I going to miss my family? Yeah, 100%. But I was definitely looking forward to getting down to Disney and being in my happy place, in my home away from home. So I headed down. It was a Monday. I headed down to Disney, first flight out from Providence. I flew out of Providence this time instead of Boston. And first flight out, headed down. Now, one of the big differences, I stayed in a different hotel, resort than I did last time. But one of the big differences is that in October, I was lucky enough to take the Magical Express for the very last time. And this time, I was not. So, as most of you know, Magical Express is no longer an option for transportation. I'm sorry if this is bouncing around a lot. I'm trying to kind of balance my my laptop. But Magical Express is no longer an option for transportation to and from the airport. And I was able to get on Mears Connect, which is a new form of transportation. So the buses that Disney used to use are from the company Mears. It's a taxi company. They do regular taxi cabs, they'll do vans, they do buses, all of that kind of stuff. So I was lucky enough that I was able to get on Mears Connect. I booked the Express. They have two different forms. They have Standard and Express. I feel like I'm saying that wrong, but Standard and Express. Standard is, I want to say, $25 to $35 per person each way. And you would stand in line, and when they get to you, they get to you. With the Express, you pay $250. That is round trip. And I got off my plane, went and I got my bags. I had my boarding pass for Mears Connect, and I walked over, and it's literally in the exact same spot that Magical Express was. So that was pretty good. I walked over, I checked in. They're like, you go to lane number, it was 2 or 3 or something. Go right on up. When I went up, somebody walked right over to me. They're like, oh, you're going to this resort? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, okay. They took me right over to the bus, and I got right on the bus. And the bus left probably, I want to say 5 to 10 minutes later. There were already people on the bus, but literally 5 to 10 minutes later, I was leaving and head to my resort. It was so great. And I would definitely recommend Mears Connect to everybody. If you can afford it, I would say do the Express. If not, Standard should be fine too. I know when we did Magical Express, there were times where we did have to wait a while for our bus. So if it's the same way, you should be fine. Now, there is nobody collecting your bags. You do have to go to baggage claim and get them and bring them with you. They do just put them right under the bus and go from there. So I definitely recommend Mears Connect. I have not tried the Sunshine Flyer, which is another company that does that. So I haven't tried them yet. The train is not going. I will probably never take the train because it goes out of Disney Springs. It goes to Disney Springs, and then you have to take a bus or a taxi to your resort. And the resort buses that go from like the resorts to Disney Springs and all of that, you're not allowed to take your luggage on those buses from what I know. And I think it's just more of an inconvenience that with having it that way. So I will probably never take the new train that they're putting in. But I know Disney is also starting this month, I believe, the minivans will be back. I'm thinking Disney will have some way that you can book a minivan in advance to pick you up from the airport. So if they do that, who knows? I'm going to see if they have that for when we do our next Disney trip. But yeah, so if you are looking for transportation to and from the airport, definitely check out Mears Connect. Super easy to use. Yes, you have to pay more, but they were very well worth it. So I highly recommend them. So I jump on Mears Connect, head over to my resort. Which resort was I staying at? Well, in October, I was lucky enough to stay at the Contemporary. This time, I stayed at a bucket list resort for me. And it's one that my husband probably would never want to stay at. It's not really, theming wise, it's not his thing. I could see staying there with my daughter. It's very much, I want to say, it sounds wrong to say it's a more girly resort. My husband probably would stay there, actually, if we were to book there. He probably wouldn't, complain or anything about it, but it would not be his first choice. I stayed at the Grand Floridian. I don't think I've ever stayed there. I would have to talk to my mom or my aunt who went with us when my sister and I were kids. So I would have to check with them, but I don't believe I've ever stayed there. So I was really, really excited about it. And we got to the resort and oh man, I can't even tell you how excited I was when I got off that bus. I got off the bus, I grabbed my luggage and headed on inside just to see. I hadn't gotten any notifications about my room yet. Went right up to the front desk, talked with somebody, and got right to my room. She gave me a map and she marked off where my room was, where my building was, and where things were around the resort. It was so awesome. So I walked right out. If you're familiar with the Grand, I didn't stay right in the main building. I stayed in one of the outer buildings, and I was in, I can't remember the name of the building now. Oh my goodness. I was in one of the last buildings where, if you know the Grand Floridian, you know that there is a small little boat ferry that you can take over to Magic Kingdom. Well, my building is one of the last ones right there. Narcoossee's is right there. I could see it from my room. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. I took the boat a few times. I would highly recommend it. I loved it. So got to my room, got all my stuff unpacked and freshened up and everything. And then I was headed right over to Epcot. And of course, staying at a monorail resort, I jumped on the monorail, went right over to the TTC, and then jumped on the monorail to Epcot from there. But when I was doing that, I actually this may have been my second solo trip, but I did something else for the very first time. I have become friends with a woman named Jenn, Jen, if you're listening, hey Jen, what's up? And we became friends on Instagram. I had never met her in real life. She's a fellow Rhode Islander, and she actually moved down to Florida. And through chatting on Instagram and everything, she saw that I was coming down, and she was like, we should hang out. I was like, I totally agree. So when I got to the TTC that first day, who was waiting for me there but my new friend Jenn? So she and I hung out. We went over to Epcot, and we ate around the world a bit. We tried the violet lemonade, which I feel like she said that she had tried it before. Jenn, you have to DM me and let me know, or message me, text me, whatever. Let me know if you have had it before. I feel like you told me you had, but now I can't remember. My memory. Ugh. So we had that. It was my first time having it. Holy moly, was that good. If you're ever there during the Flower and Garden Festival, you must go and get the violet lemonade. Now, I thought it was just a regular drink, but it's frozen. And whew, is that amazing. So I highly recommend that you try that. So we hung out, we walked around the World Showcase, we ate some food here and there. We tried, my husband Will, he saw something. It was like a salted caramel pretzel bread pudding that they have over in Germany, in Epcot, which I never knew this place was there. It tucked right in. You have no idea. And we went in, ordered it, and we both were like, this is amazing. It's probably one of the best things we had all day. We went on the ride in Mexico, the Three Caballeros, which of course went on that for Emily because Emily was not with me this trip and she loves Donald Duck. And then we saw that they were doing meet and greets with characters, and who did we see? The man himself, not Mickey, Donald Duck, dressed in his Mexican outfit with his sombrero and everything. If you follow me on Instagram, you will see the reel that I made with me meeting Donald, and he actually, it was amazing. So we waited in line. I went up to go meet Donald. I was able to give him a hug, and I actually got a video for Em because she couldn't be there. I took a video of him, and I was like, "Oh, Donald, can you wave and blow a kiss to my daughter? She couldn't be here with me today, and you're her favorite." And he did, and it was the best. So I love that. Thank you, Jenn, for indulging me and letting me do that, not being like, "Oh my gosh, this crazy lady who wants to go meet Donald Duck." But we walked around the World Showcase. We had a great time there. So much fun. I just missed being in Epcot and the World Showcase. I always have such a good time when we go there. We looked for, there were a couple of other things that we looked for that they didn't actually have. I know there was this one drink over in Canada that they didn't have. We went in to a couple of stores. We just had a really great time. And then Jenn and I said goodbye and hopped back on the monorail and went back to the Grand Floridian and hung out there for a while. And that was pretty much my first day. It was a great first day. You know, I was tired because it had been a very early morning for me, but I had so much fun walking around Epcot with Jenn that it completely, all the tiredness and fatigue I might have been feeling from flying and being up so early was completely out the window. So my next day, I went to Magic Kingdom. And this was also my first day of trying out Genie Plus. Now, Genie Plus, for those of you who don't know, if you don't know, I don't know what rock you have been living under, but Genie Plus is like the new Fast Pass system for Disney. And it's interesting, to say the least. As an annual pass holder, the way that I was able to get Genie Plus is every day you buy it every single day. You couldn't buy it ahead of time like people that were booking so far out could. They can't do that anymore. Disney just changed that. But I had to buy it that day. So literally, if I was going to sleep, I would set an alarm for midnight, buy my Genie Plus, go back to sleep, have another alarm set for 7, and then I would wake up at 7 a.m. and I would book my first Lightning Lane. And that's the way that it was. So I woke up at 7 a.m., booked my first Lightning Lane. I'm pretty sure I did Haunted Mansion for the first one because it's my favorite ride. So I booked that as early as I could. I had some breakfast, got dressed, got ready, headed right over to Magic Kingdom, jumped on the monorail, headed over to Magic Kingdom, and I was off. Now, with Genie Plus, if you work it right, you can get a bunch of different rides during your day. Let's see, that day, I think I got about 7 Lightning Lanes, 7 or 8, booked that day. Now, for those who like to ride the top tier rides like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Rise of the Resistance, the new Guardians of the Galaxy, now you have to pay ahead of time for those, or ahead of time. You have to pay additionally for those. And when you're booking them at 7 in the morning, you may not be able to get one of those depending on, everything. You may not be able to get one of those until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So you're pretty much going about through your day standing in line until you can get on that ride. So, I mean, for some people, they may not feel like it's worth it, but for those who are like me, who don't ride those kinds of rides, Genie Plus was definitely worth it for me. I think I stood in line for maybe 1 or 2 rides the whole day and waited in the wait. I think the only ones I actually waited for were the People Mover and Jungle Cruise. I think those were the only ones I actually waited for. All the others I got lightning lanes for. So it was easy enough for Haunted Mansion, Peter Pan, Winnie the Pooh. They do It's a Small World. It's a Small World, Buzz Lightyear. So another thing to know, if you're someone like me, you don't ride the fast rides and all of that, when you're booking, you can only do lightning lanes for one ride at a time. So you make your first one initially in the morning. As soon as you tap in, just like you would for a fast pass, you would use your magic band or your card or anything, your phone, whatever. As soon as you tap in for that, you then can make your next one. I was literally tapping mine in and standing in line, making my next lightning lane through the My Disney Experience app, which is where you do it. And I recommend doing that to everybody. For those who don't know, I'm also a Disney travel agent. A client that I just booked, I was telling her all about Disney Plus, and I said, that's the way to do it. Tap into your ride and immediately make your next one. And it worked really well for me. I was able to get a bunch of rides that first day in Magic Kingdom, and it was great. I definitely recommend it. I definitely think Genie Plus is definitely worth it. So let's see, what else did I do in Magic Kingdom the first day? Ate a bunch of great food. Went to some places that I wouldn't normally go to, because this whole trip, I did not make one dining reservation this whole trip. I did all quick service, and most of the time I did mobile order. There were only a couple of times I was standing in line for snacks. I know when I got my Dole Whip that weekend, or that trip, I had to stand in line for it. I couldn't get it ahead of time with mobile order. And yeah, I pretty much did mobile order every time that I could. And it was definitely worth it. I got lunch at Pecos Bill one day. I'm trying to think of all the places that I ate. Bunch of different places. It was all great. And so yeah, first day was Magic Kingdom. First full day, I guess we'll call it. So my travel day, my first full day was Magic Kingdom. It was awesome. And yeah, it was a great day. I was able to see fireworks that night from my room. I was able to see the electric water pageant from my room. I didn't even have to leave. I went out onto the little patio area that I had at my room, and I was able to walk out there and actually see everything. So that was really cool. So my next day, I headed over to Animal Kingdom, and first thing I wanted to do, of course, I love Animal Kingdom. My favorite place in Animal Kingdom is Pandora, and I headed right over. I was able to get on the Navi River journey really quickly, which is one of my favorites, and I rode that. Let's see, I think that day I was only able to make maybe three lightning lanes. I think I did Safari and Navi River Journey over in Animal Kingdom. And then I hopped from Animal Kingdom over to Hollywood Studios. And I made a lightning lane for Toy Story Mania while I was there. So I think I only got 3 that day. So when you go from 7 in one day to 3 in another, it kind of... But I had a great time. Animal Kingdom, let's see... I ate at Satuli Canteen again. I absolutely loved the cheeseburger pods when I was there in October, so I had to get that again. And of course, I had to get my Night Blossom. And pretty much right after that, as soon as I could hop, I hopped right over to Hollywood Studios. So I went over to Hollywood Studios, walked around a bit. I got my Jack cookie, and I saw a few characters, didn't get in any lines to take pictures with anybody, but saw a few. I saw Chip and Dale at one point, and went over and I rode Toy Story Mania, which is my second favorite ride. Had a blast. Got a decent score. I don't think it was my best, but I got a decent score. And I ate there as well. Lots of great food, like all weekend, really. Like, I say weekend, all trip, because it was a Monday through a Thursday. But all trip, like, I don't think I had anything to eat where I was disappointed. I don't think I ever go to Disney and get food where I'm disappointed. My husband's going to correct me. He's going to hear this and he's going to be like, wait a minute, what about that time? But yeah, everything was great. So day 3, full day number 2, I did Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, had a great time. I was tired by the end of the day, and I headed back to my resort and hung out. I think I had dinner. Did I have dinner at my resort that night? I think I did. Because I had plans to go back to Magic Kingdom, but I got too tired and fell asleep. So that happened. And then the next day was my last day. It was checkout day, but it was also a Magic Kingdom day for me. I was taking the very last flight out, so I didn't have to get back to my resort to grab Mears Connect until like 5 o'clock. So I woke up that morning, packed my bags. I did some packing the night before, but I packed up my bags, brought them down to Bell Service, had them there, and then I was off for the day. Went up to Magic Kingdom. Spent the day there, rode some of my favorite rides again, got a ton of lightning lanes again. I think I rode what was it? I rode It's a Small World that day. So I rode that. I rode Haunted Mansion a couple of times. I think I got in line once, and the line was only like, I want to say it was 30 to 40 minutes, so that's not bad. I did that, and yeah, it was a good day. I mean, I always like to end my last day. I always like it to end at Magic Kingdom, because I mean, what better way to send off than to going to Magic Kingdom and being there. I don't think I ever stayed in the areas to see the parade. I know I caught a couple of cavalcades while I was there, but I never stayed for the parades. I do like seeing the parades. I do like doing that when I'm with Emily, but when I'm by myself, I'm kind of like, it's fine. So, all in all, I know I'm kind of all over the place with this episode, but I had a great time. It was a great trip. The one thing I will say that kind of put a downer on this trip was that I did find myself getting lonely. And it did not happen to me in October. When I went in October, did I miss my family? Yes. But did I feel lonely? No. And that could be because it was 3 days and they were jam-packed, and I was from, almost every day I was in 2 different parks. So I was busy until it was time, to go to bed. And this time I didn't feel quite as busy. And maybe that was because of the lightning lane that I didn't feel as busy, excuse me. But I did find myself feeling lonely. One of the things at Grand Floridian is that I saw a lot of families, and that made me miss my husband and my daughter even more. And I don't know, for some reason, this trip, I just felt lonely. So I said to my husband when I got back, I had a great time. I always have a great time at Disney. But I said, I think the next trips I take will probably be either a girls' trip with a friend or my sister or somebody, or a mother-daughter trip with Emily. But the next trip is going to be a family trip. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be back in Disney with my husband and my daughter, because I know that they love going to Disney just as much as I do. So I'm excited for that. My next trip, our next trip, is going to be one to celebrate my 40th birthday, which is coming at the end of the year. And we're doing a land and sea trip, which, if you've never heard of that, it is part of your trip, you are in Walt Disney World and you spend a few days there. And then the other part of it is a Disney cruise. So we are going to be doing a Disney cruise, and then we are going to be staying in Walt Disney World for a few days. And I am so excited. It's going to be a great trip. I've never been on a Disney cruise. I haven't been on a cruise myself since I was 16. And I don't know that Will's ever been on a cruise, and Emily hasn't. So it's going to be a really great experience. I can't wait to see Disney's own island. It's going to be awesome. I absolutely can't wait. So that'll be the next trip. So that is it for this episode of the Disney Life Happy Wife podcast. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I know it's been a long time since my last episode, so I thank you for being there and listening and coming back and loving the podcast, hopefully, and for checking out the YouTube channel. If you haven't, head on over to YouTube and check it out. You can actually see what I look like in these videos. So, and like I said, today's episode was a little bit different, kind of off the cuff, kind of trying to remember everything, and nothing written down because I want to know what it's like to do this mobily, even though I am in my house. But for the future, for when I bring my laptop and everything to Disney World with me, I can do podcast episodes from there. So there we go. So thank you for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. I love talking about Disney with you guys, and you being able to listen and you listening and taking the time to listen makes all of this worth it. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you all have a magical rest of your week, and I will see you real soon.
Now I and a ghost will follow you home.